How's it going, everyone? It's Caleb here, and today we are going to be talking about Fallout 4 on the Xbox Series X. Now, I've played Fallout 4 before, and I've beaten it multiple times on the PlayStation 4, but I have not ever beaten it on the Xbox Series X, so this was my first time playing through and beating it, and this was also my first time playing through and beating some of the DLC. You know, I played through Far Harbor, Nuka World, Automatron, and I played some of the Vault 1 as well, and we'll talk about all of that stuff and kind of just, get into it. I was going to make a separate video for each DLC, but I decided just to do them all together here and just do a Fallout 4 Game of the Year Edition review, just because I figured it would be kind of easier to do it all in one video, and also I didn't want to bother you guys with multiple Fallout 4 videos. I figured we'll keep it in one video and keep it all together. So, Fallout 4, if you have never seen a Fallout game before, is a post-apocalyptic game where you are exploring a devastated world after a nuclear war. It is a really cool series. I love the Fallout series. I've been with it since Fallout 3. I love these games, and I love the storyline in all of the games. This one has the weakest story out of all of them, but it's still not a bad game overall. In fact, this game actually excels in one place where the other games, struggle a little bit these days, and that's gameplay-wise and the gunplay. The gunplay in this game is the smoothest out of any Fallout game. Obviously, that's because it's a lot newer and everything like that, but it just plays so smooth, and it makes some of the old features that were in the other Fallout games kind of obsolete because it plays so smooth. There's a system called VATS in all of the Fallout games, and it basically slows down time and lets you target specific body parts of an enemy. And in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, those were pretty much necessary because it was really hard to aim in those older games. It made it so you had a little bit of a cheat, in a way, to hit the enemies in a little bit easier. This game, because the gunplay is so good, it doesn't need that feature to slow down time and aim at the enemies. It's still there if you want to use it, but it definitely doesn't need it. And in fact, I kind of find myself almost never using it, because when I do use it in this game, for some reason it usually misses. So I don't know why that is, but VATS is in this game still, so if you're excited and you like VATS, it's here. However, I do think that VATS is not as good in this game, but it's not a huge deal because the gunplay is so good, it kind of gets rid of the need for VATS altogether anyway. The game itself and the world itself is not where I would have liked to see the Fallout world go. I didn't really care too much about Boston, but that's where they decided to go, and there is some cool locations that you can see within the game. You get to go to Red Sox Stadium, and you get to help repaint the wall and everything like that. So there's some cool little quests like that, and you get to see some other interesting areas, like there's the Museum of Witchcraft that you can go to, and it kind of starts off as a scary location until you realize what's causing all the noise and everything inside of it. So there's some interesting spots here, but I definitely would have liked to see somewhere else. In fact, I'm still holding out hope that one day we'll get a Fallout New Orleans, because to me that would be the most interesting place to go. I want to see a Fallout New Orleans. It'd be such a great way to tie a lot of the horror elements that are in Fallout together. There's a lot of stuff. If you didn't know, there's a lot of horror stuff in Fallout, actually. If you've ever been to like the Dunwich buildings and stuff in the other Fallout games, and you've just seen like some of the quests even in one of the DLCs called Point Lookout in Fallout 3. There's a lot of supernatural stuff going on in Fallout, and I feel like if they did a Fallout New Orleans, they could really tie it into that. So that's kind of why I want that. And there's even supernatural stuff in this Fallout as well. You can find this quarry where they were basically worshipping something in that quarry. They were worshipping something, and you can find a ritual knife down there. So there's some interesting stuff going on. There's even a haunted house in one of the DLCs. So I like that stuff, so I feel like if they went to New Orleans next, that'd be really cool. Let me get back on topic, though. This is a rambling review. All my reviews are rambling reviews. I like to get sidetracked and talk about random stuff sometimes. But let's get back on to Fallout 4. Boston is not my favorite place in the world to explore. It's definitely not my favorite setting in the Fallout universe, but they did a pretty good job with the location and giving you interesting places to explore. I do like that you can go on top of a lot of the skyscrapers in the city. You can actually go on top of them, and a lot of them are like connected with like little platforms and stuff, and you can get really high above the city, and just it's really cool how high you can get above it and get like a cool view of everything going on. The actual storyline in this game, Again, it's not the greatest storyline in the Fallout series. It's just kind of okay. I do like New Vegas and 3 storyline a lot better. This one, basically, I don't want to spoil too much because I do feel like you kind of have to go into this game a little bit blind to really enjoy the storyline. But basically, all I'm going to say is that you get to see what happens when the bombs actually fall, and then you get to see what happens, obviously, afterwards, after the bombs fall, and you get released into this post-apocalyptic world. But you do get to kind of see what that pre-war lifestyle looked like. So that's interesting, and I think it's cool that they did that. But the actual story that takes place after you see the bombs drop and you get released into the wasteland, you start dealing with some interesting ideas with like synthetic humans being created, and you get this group called the Institute that's making them, and they're also like kidnapping people and replacing them with synthetic humans and stuff like that. There's interesting stuff going on, don't get me wrong. It's definitely interesting, but I still like the other, Fallout games stories better. I think that they just did better in story department, especially with character writing as well. I like the characters a lot more in the other Fallout games. You do still meet some really nice characters in this one. You can have companions in this game just like you can in the other ones. One of the biggest selling features about this game, though, and one of the biggest features in this game, is the building. You can build settlements in this game. And you don't have to. You can actually pretty much avoid it for the most part. But I actually encourage you to try building settlements because it is really fun. I actually really like building the settlements. That whole settlement building part, it usually is wrapped up in quest lines with this group called the Minutemen, and they're kind of like the protagonists of the story while the Institute is the antagonists. So you get to help the Minutemen and basically help resettle the wasteland, and it's kind of cool doing that, and you get to build your own buildings, you get to build your own, places for them to sleep, build defenses for the town and stuff like that. So it's really cool, and I really like doing that stuff. I like building stuff like that. I've built my own town and I have skyscrapers, I have churches, I have hotels. I build all sorts of stuff in this game, and I love doing it. That's probably my favorite thing actually about Fallout 4 is the building element, because I can spend hours and hours and hours just building stuff in this game, and I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of resources, and it takes a lot of time, but when you actually get to see your finished creation of whatever you're building, it feels like you really did something special. So I like doing it, and I think that everyone should at least try it out. There's some other things that I wish that they would have done differently. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the enemy redesigns that they did in this game. I wish they would have kept some of the original designs from the other Fallout games. I don't like the way feral ghouls work in this game, and I don't like that they are like sleeping half the time or playing dead. It's like, why are these feral ghouls playing dead? They're not supposed to really be intelligent, so why are they doing this? So I wasn't a huge fan of that. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the weapons either, the weapon designs. I feel like the weapons in the other Fallout games looked a lot better. This one has a lot of almost homemade looking weapons where it's like wood and like pipes and stuff. In fact, they're called pipe pistols and pipe rifles and stuff like that. And I'm not a big fan of that style. It just doesn't look very good, and it's pretty unrealistic as well. So I'm not a big fan of the way that a lot of the guns look in this game. One thing I do have to bring up is while the performance on this game is usually pretty good for the most part, like I don't notice any frame rate dips or anything like that. I don't notice any really buggy textures much anymore or anything of that nature. This game still has one really bad flaw, and that's the fact that this game crashes quite often. It should not crash as much as it does. Sometimes I'll go and I'll play 4 to 6 hours without a crash, but sometimes, it will just crash within an hour of playing it and stuff like that. So it's completely random when it crashes, and it crashes still fairly often. It crashes enough for it to be an issue and annoying, and it doesn't just crash for me. I played it on the Xbox Series X, and my brother also played this game, and he played it on the Xbox Series S, and it also crashed on him multiple times on the Series S. And the worst thing is that for him is that it would crash during the saves. So it would also corrupt his data, and he would lose, progress. So he would have to go back and replay a lot of parts over again just because he would lose progress that way because of corrupted data. So that's something to keep in mind. Do I think it's a deal breaker? No, but it definitely is an annoyance that really shouldn't be a thing in this day of gaming. Now that we've talked about the main Fallout 4 game and pretty much everything that it has to offer, we're going to talk about some of the DLC. But I want to say first, before we even get to the DLC, if you're just wanting to know about the base game of Fallout 4, it's 100% worth it. You should definitely check out Fallout 4. It's a fantastic game. Even though it's not the best in the series, it's still a really good Fallout game, especially for newcomers of the series. So go check out Fallout 4. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the DLC, because while I like the base game, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the DLC. We'll talk about the DLC that I like first. So let's talk about Automation. So Automation is a Fallout 4 DLC that basically allows you to start building your own robots. And I really like doing that. I love building my own robots. You get to give them their own voices, their own, that you can build different types of heads for them, different types of arms and legs, and you can mix and match body parts from other types of robots that you see in the game. And I really like doing that stuff. That was really fun. And it adds an entire quest line where you are basically trying to fight the Mechanist once again. If you remember the Mechanist from Fallout 3, well, there is a new Mechanist in town, and it's up to you to deal with them. So it adds a new quest, and the quest is basically just a really long dungeon once you actually get to like the main Mechanist lair. I think it took me like an hour to go through the actual dungeon itself, and of course there's like some build up before you get there. But I actually do like that DLC quite a bit, and to me that was probably the best DLC in terms of what it lets you do and the extra stuff that it gives you. I like being able to build my own robots and stuff like that. I know that has some silly stuff too that they added in it, but I mean, just being able to build, my own bots, that kind of makes up for all the silly, stupid stuff that's in it. So, another DLC that I also really like is the Vault DLC. I don't remember exactly what it's called off the top of my head. I think it's called like Vault Tech or something like that, Vault Tech Workshop. But I really like that one. It lets you basically go inside an empty vault that's basically just a cavern and start building your own vault from the ground up. And I loved building a vault. That was so much fun. Again, you're going to notice that my favorite things from the DLC, it all revolves around the building. I love the building aspect in Fallout 4. So being able to build my own vault was really cool, and you get to carry out some experiments on the Vault Dwellers. Now, I'm going to be honest here. This is one of the downsides of the Fallout 4 DLC. You will probably like this DLC more if you are a villain character. I don't usually play as villain characters in Fallout, so I don't get as much use out of this DLC or one of the other DLCs that we're going to talk about here in a few. So, for me, I don't really like running the experiments on them. You can do ethical experiments and stuff like that, but it really just kind of becomes stupid when you start doing the ethical experiments, because it's just like, oh, put caffeine in their soda. It's like, okay. It's not like exciting stuff once you start doing that. But either way, I still liked building my own vault, even though this DLC definitely feels like it's geared more towards evil characters. Now we're going to talk about Nuka World, which is the other DLC that really requires you... I don't want to say it requires you, but it will benefit you if you are playing as a villain, because this DLC is all about the Raiders. This DLC really wants you to basically lead a bunch of Raiders, 3 different factions of Raiders. It wants you to try to unite them, and you can even start going out into the Commonwealth and start raiding settlements and everything else. So this is like a full-on Raider DLC inside this Nuka World add-on. Now, I don't really care about that stuff, again, because I don't usually play as villain characters, but I played as much of it as I could as a good character to basically see how far I could get before it started trying to make me like attack settlers and stuff like that. And I will say, you actually do still get quite a bit of gameplay before it tries to make you go attack settlers. I think I got like 6 or 7 hours out of this DLC before it started trying to make me go and attack settlements. And then once it did that, that's when I was just like, okay, all the raiders are gonna die now. but until then though, 6 hours of gameplay is still pretty good, I think. And you do get this awesome new world that you get to explore, this awesome new area to explore. You get to explore Nuka World, and it's basically Disney World, but Nuka-Cola. It's the Fallout equivalent of Disney World, though. You get, like, a bunch of different kingdoms, just like in, Disney World. You have, like, Kitty Kingdom, and you have this Western Kingdom. You have this Sci-Fi Kingdom. You have that, straight up Nuka World itself. You have a bunch of different places you can go. There's a bottling factory. And it's cool to explore all these different locations. The enemies are really annoying in all of these different locations, especially Kitty Kingdom. That one I remember the most because I hate dealing with the ghoul that lives there. There's a ghoul who is trying to spill radiation throughout the park. He has like radioactive fumes going in there. And when you get to the Kitty Kingdom, it's just you fighting a bunch of ghouls with radioactive fumes all around you, and I hate that level. I hate that mission, I hate that quest. But still, either way, I still enjoyed what I played of Nuka World for the most part. And there's some other interesting quests that it does add as well. I do like that it has this weird like cult that you can help. You can help build what they think is like a spaceship, and maybe, I don't know exactly how it works. All I know is that the spaceship did not go well for them when I tried to build it, okay? It blew all their heads off. So that didn't work out well for me. But there's some other cool locations. There's like a haunted mansion that you can check out and stuff too. So I do really like Nuka World. It has some cool stuff. And also, it does have some new arcade stuff. So you can actually like start building arcades in your settlements and stuff like that. Again, more building stuff, which is always great. Now we're going to talk about my least favorite Fallout 4 DLC, and that's Far Harbor. I am not a fan of Far Harbor at all. Far Harbor is basically the Temu version of Point Lookout. It is not... I feel like it wants to be Point Lookout really bad, but it fails pretty badly at being it. The enemies aren't nearly as interesting. The story isn't nearly as interesting either. The area itself isn't as cool. And overall, it's just kind of a miserable experience. It's way too gloomy. There's nothing upbeat about it. There's nothing that really makes me want to explore it more. I was just kind of happy to have that DLC done, if I'm being honest. The main DLC has basically 3 different factions, and you have to decide which factions you want to help. There's these synths that, you can have the option to help protect. You can help this village that is scared of the synths and the Children of Adam. Or you can help the Children of Adam. So you have a few different groups that you can help there, and it's up to you to pick which one you're going to help. And it's fine. It's a fine storyline. Make sure you bring Nick Valentine with you in this one, by the way, one of the companions, because you're going to want him for this because there's a lot of backstory for him. So I guess that's a good thing. They added more storyline for one of the fan-favorite characters. But, man, there's one thing I really hate about this DLC. And that's this weird puzzle section in this DLC. At one point, you get sucked into a computer program, basically, and it starts playing almost like Portal does, where you're trying to figure out puzzles, and you're trying to connect this beam to, this, like, other thing. It's just a big mess, and trying to do these puzzles was obnoxious, and I hated doing them. I'm not a fan of puzzle games for the most part anyway. I do like some, but not like this. I like puzzle games when I know I'm going into a game that is all about puzzles. I don't like puzzle games when it feels like it's just kind of thrown in there as an afterthought, and that's kind of what this felt like. I was not a big fan of it. But it is what it is. It's there. I don't like it. Maybe other people do, though, but I definitely thought it was the worst part about Fallout 4 in general. There's still some good things about this DLC, though. I don't want to make it sound like all the DLC on Far Harbor is bad, because there is some good stuff that comes along with this. You do get to meet a super mutant, and the super mutant trains animals. So you can actually buy pets from him. You can buy a wolf from him, you can buy another dog, you can buy a super mutant hound. So you get some animals that you can buy from him, and he's a cool character to meet. And you also get to do a murderer mystery, which is also kind of cool. You get to meet a bunch of robo-brains that have like brains from before the war, so they've been alive for a long time, and one of them gets killed, and it's up to you to figure out which of all these robo-brains killed the other one, and that's a pretty cool one. Also, you get to romance a robo-brain, which is something that I never thought that I would ever say, but you get to romance a robo-brain in this one. So if that sounds like your thing, well, there you go. Overall, though, I say that the DLC for this game is still good, but it's definitely not nearly as good as the DLC in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. I think Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas' DLC is still on a completely different level. But that being said, Fallout 4 and all of its DLC is still worth a playthrough. Even if you just play through the DLC once, it's still worth playing through. Fallout 4, I've played through multiple times, and I enjoy playing through it. Now, the DLC I can see myself going back and playing Nuka World and trying to be evil characters and trying it that way. Even though I don't usually play as evil characters, I could see myself going and at least trying it. Far Harbor is one of those DLCs that I'll play it again, but not because I want to, and more of because of the obligation to finish something, you know? So that's the only DLC that I would say is kind of bad, in my opinion. I do not like Far Harbor, but the rest of the DLC I think is pretty good. So there we go. Go check out Fallout 4. It's a really fun game, and it's definitely worth your time. You can spend so many hours playing this game. It's one of those games where you can sink hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into. And the great thing about it is that you can do that in just the buildings feature alone. If you just want to build settlements, you can spend so much time doing that. I've probably spent hundreds of hours just building stuff, throughout all of my different playthroughs. So go check out Fallout 4. It is a good game. It's not as good as Fallout 3 in New Vegas, but it's still a good entry into the Fallout series. And I still think, though, that you should check out Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas eventually if you have not played those and you've only played Fallout 4. Because Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas definitely have the story. They definitely have the better worlds, the better world building, the better characters, and they also have the just better settings in general. So go check out the other Fallout games as well. But that doesn't take away, I don't want to take away too much from Fallout 4, because Fallout 4 is still a good game when you look at it by itself. So thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next video. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.